Hello, I'm Esther Gido-Ewart. It's Wednesday, March 8th. This is Africa 54. Severe drought in Somalia, along with conflict, is forcing anguished citizens to flee their homes in order to survive. Wednesday is International Women's Day, an annual global holiday celebrated on March 8th that's designed to bring attention to issues such as gender equality, violence and abuse against women. Women in Ghana and Malawi tell us what the day means to them. And the Abidjan's ABC fighters prepare for their Basketball Africa League debut. We'll have a report. All that and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. We begin in the Horn of Africa, where the International Organization for Migration says Somalia is experiencing its worst drought in decades amid an ongoing conflict that's forcing many people to flee their homes. David Doyle has more.
The number of people forced to flee their homes in Somalia has reached a record high. 3.8 million, according to the International Organization for Migration, amid violence and the country's worst drought in decades. People like Nune Isaac.
7 children died in the drought, and I did not have anything to feed the remaining 6 children who are at home. And so we came here to Baidoa on foot.
Somalia has been hit by 5 failed rainy seasons as well as ongoing conflict. Tens of thousands of new arrivals have been flocking to major cities and towns like Baidoa and Mogadishu. International aid agencies project that up to 300,000 could be newly displaced by July this year. Ugochi Daniels is the Deputy Director General of Operations for the IOM.
Baidoa has received the most internally displaced people in Somalia, but all of Somalia is also affected by conflict as well as by climate change.
In Baidoa, shelters have been provided by the IOM. Children are brought daily to health centres to get treatment for malnutrition. Daniels says they're working with the government and people in the camps to secure their future. That, she says, means providing them with land where they can live safely, a sustainable water supply, and access to livelihoods that are not so impacted by the changing climate.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. Italian police say Joy Jeff, a Nigerian woman wanted in Italy since 2010, has been flown back to Rome, where she has been sentenced to 13 years in prison for crimes including running a prostitution ring. Police say Jeff, 48, was one of the few women on Italy's most wanted list, describing her as a prominent figure in the Nigerian mafia. The extradition was facilitated by a treaty signed by Nigeria and Italy in 2020. Italian investigators in the eastern city of Ancona say Jeff played a leading role in trafficking women to Italy, Spain, and the Netherlands, where they were forced into prostitution by violence and threats. Wednesday, March 8th, is International Women's Day, a day set aside to celebrate women's achievements around the world. This year's theme is Digital Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality, and the hashtag is Embrace Equity. For more insight into how this day is being celebrated, I'm joined live via Skype from Doha, Qatar, by Sarah Beslow Nyanti, Deputy Special Representative of the Secretary General, Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator of the UN Development System in South Sudan. Ms. Nyanti, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, Sarah, in what ways can this year's theme be achieved given the digital divide that we see almost across all the African continent, especially when you look at people in rural settings?
You know, firstly, I think it's important to note that acknowledging the digital divide is the first step to working towards bridging that divide. And in Africa, we are the most underserved in terms of digital access. There is a framework, the African Union Framework 2020-2030, looking at digital and looking at technology across Africa. And I think it's important for us to build on that framework in different countries to ensure that we implement programs that are inbuilt with equitable approaches for women, for girls, and ensuring that we bridge the divide between the rich and the poor, making access to technology, access to digital tools and services for all in the country. For South Sudan particularly, making sure that that access is created for the youth and for the women across South Sudan.
You know, Sarah, there's so much talk about what we can do because every year there's a new theme. And at the end of the year, we're not so sure how we say this is what was achieved as a result of the theme for the Women International Day of Women. So given your position in South Sudan at the United Nations mission there, you're familiar with all this political upheaval, political instability. Displacement of women and girls is a big problem in that country. How can women in South Sudan get access to technology?
You know, one of the key issues we have is the barriers to access, right? We look at the barriers in terms of the cost of the tools. We look at barriers in terms of energy and access to electricity and access to energy sources for digital technology. We look at also the cost of data, the cost of technology itself. And these are all barriers for the poor, they're barriers for women and for girls. And in terms of ensuring access across the continent, ensuring access across all of the populations we serve, we need to be working in terms of public-private partnership, working with the private sector to establish platforms to support women and link them to economic livelihood activities and to support youth as well. For example, in South Sudan, we have a World Bank funded program with UN Women for economic empowerment for women and girls is also helpful in terms of connecting the youth. The youth are leading the charge in terms of connectivity, in terms of digital access and innovations. And empowering youth, South Sudan is a young woman. I call South Sudan a young lady, 75% youth, 60% women. Young women are the key, empowering young women with access in rural areas, especially to look at using technology for reporting and for monitoring on sexual and gender-based violence, for example, using technology to ensure early warning systems in terms of conflict, in terms of climatic shocks. There's so many ways in which we can empower those in the rural areas with access to technology and use that to actually strengthen our programming.
Sarah, let me take you back quickly to Liberia, where you grew up during the Civil War, and what you are doing to impact women and girls there, very briefly.
Very honestly, being a Liberian woman, it does resonate with me working in South Sudan. The fact that we have all of this potential in terms of the young girls of South Sudan who have been caught up and have, for no fault of their own, been missing in terms of access to health, access to education. And I feel very strongly that if Liberia could come out of a civil crisis and come out to a more stable society right now, not yet out of the woods, but trying to make that turn towards having a development trajectory that will lead to sustainable development. South Sudan can do the same thing. It's our youngest republic, and all of us who have the opportunity to serve the people of South Sudan owe it to the women and girls of South Sudan to make sure that our programs are equitable, to make sure that our programs focus on women and girls, because if you leave 50% of your population behind, you will never have 100% of the gains.
Right. Sarah, thank you so much for your insight. Sarah Beslow Nyanti is Deputy Special Representative of the Secretary General Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator of the UN Development System in South Sudan. For more perspective on what International Women's Day means, we reached out to women in Ghana.
Hello, my name is Francisca Kakra-Forsen, a journalist here in Accra, Ghana. On International Women's Day, the world comes together to celebrate the social, economic, and political achievements of women around the world. I asked some women here their thoughts on digital access and equality.
So there's been some progress in terms of using technology for gender equality, because now we have a lot of females within the tech space. So there's been that progress of having women in that sector.
Now the women are rubbing shoulders with the men. Yes, so it has also helped in terms of the gender equality. All the same, but like what I have said, it has added up something to our skillfulness.
Women in Ghana expressing their views on International Women's Day. Women in Malawi also spoke to VOA on what they think about International Women's Day.
March 8 every year is International Women's Day. On this day, women's rights are promoted and the women are also celebrated. I'm on the streets of Blantyre, where I want to talk to various women on what they feel about this day.
To me, I think it's about celebrating what women have done in the world, their contributions to the community, and how they find their voice into the world.
What day is this? We want to know about Mother's Day. It is on 15 October every year, so I do not know about this day. There is another day. I wish we knew more about this day. We only know about 15 October.
International Women's Day is an important day, not just for women, but also men across the world. It's the day when we celebrate, we commemorate, we recognize the gains that have been made over the years in improving the status of women in the world, and particularly here in our country, Malawi. We recognize also the steps that need to be taken to improve the status of women. As you know, here in Malawi, 52 out of every 100 people that you see on the streets of Blantyre, on the streets of Malawi, are women. But how is their life? What is their status in society? Do they have a seat at the table? How many women have a seat at the table as we're talking right now? What more needs to be done? So it's a time of celebration, but it's also a time of reflection.
It is about the role of women. What they do is raising children until they grow up. It is not an easy task to be a mother. It is not easy to raise children until they grow up and become independent. It is a great thing for women.
As for me, this day, it reminds me of how people take women, just like how important women are in this world, and what things they do for the nation or for the whole society or even the whole world.
But how do these women celebrate this day? I'm on the streets of Blantyre in Malawi, where these women tell me how they celebrate this day and what they intend to do on this particular special day.
I think this day is to advance the agenda for more equity. In equity, we're talking about not just equality, but what is the playing field like for women, for girls, even for men, for everyone? Is the playing field equal for everyone? I think for me, that's the focus of celebrating this year's International Women's Day, and how can we embrace that equity in all spheres of our lives.
I will not be doing anything different. I will be working. It is because I do not know anything.
As a woman and as a professional, I plan to tell stories about women, what have inspired me, telling my personal stories and how they can motivate other women to do better in life.
We will be discussing ways that can help to empower us. We will discuss businesses which are important in improving our daily lives.
No, I don't have any plan because I have a lot of things to do.
Malawian women there from the city of Blantyre speaking on International Women's Day. For more on how the African diaspora here in Washington are celebrating this day, I'm joined live from the African Union Embassy in Washington, D.C. by VOA's Paul Ndiho. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Esther.
What's the women's take downtown D.C. on this day? What are they saying about the theme?
Certainly a lot of excitement. Women are very, very excited about this day. They are talking about how to bring about change, especially when you talk about innovation and technology. What does it take for women to be part of the conversation? What does it take for these women to be seated on the table where these decisions are being made that affect them? So that's the kind of sentiment that I'm getting from the speakers here. They are talking about how to forge ways with institutions like the African Union to figure out how to promote or to bring about digital, to bridge about that gap of the digital divide on the continent.
Paul, what are the women in the diaspora saying about, the latest technology? Here we are exposed to great technology. We don't have a lot of interruptions with the internet. What's their take, and what do they want to do with this in relations to the continent itself?
Sadly, that's still a dream for most places or most people on the continent. When you talk about technology, not every single person or woman has access to that technology. So the kinds of conversations that are taking place here is to figure out how they can bring some of those people into the conversation. What is it that organizations like the African Union can do to bridge about the gap? And you also hear of people how, for example, the internet has tried to bridge that barrier. We are no longer, left out when it comes to information. We access the same information just as anybody here, but there is still a lag between connectivity and the people who actually need to use that internet.
Paul, thank you very much for your reporting. VOA's Paul Ndiho, live for us from the African Union Embassy here in Washington, D.C. Still to come, how a Ghanaian initiative dubbed Yes, She Can promotes the participation of women and girls in science, technology, engineering, and math. We'll be right back.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, we'll look at online violence against women. Where does freedom of speech end, and where does hate speech begin? Research shows it's become a national security threat in some countries. What are social media platforms doing to address the problem? Wednesday is International Women's Day, and I'll have a special interview with international model and philanthropist Noella Kosaris Musunka about her work educating girls in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Join me, Heidi Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
In other news, the United Nations Human Rights Chief Volker Turk on Wednesday is criticizing a British draft law that would outlaw asylum claims by anyone arriving in the country illegally, warning it would violate international law. Turk says he is deeply concerned at the legislation. Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo says his government is finalizing the paperwork for an International Monetary Fund loan meant to stabilize the country and its currency. Ghana is struggling with its worst economic crisis in a generation, secured an agreement with the IMF in December for a $3 billion loan. In a survey published by the Rand Merchant Bank and compiled by the Bureau for Economic Research Wednesday reveals that South Africa's Business Confidence Index fell by 2 points in the first quarter to 36. It was dragged down by long power outages and deteriorating household income. As women worldwide celebrate International Women's Day, many still face enormous challenges trying to reach their full potential. An initiative in Ghana dubbed Yes, She Can is promoting the participation of women and girls in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, while helping them fight gender stereotypes. Africa 54 technology correspondent Paul Ndiho spoke to Eugenia Boadi, a petroleum engineer and founder of Accra-based Yes, She Can, for more specifics on the initiative.
Welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you so much, Paul.
You are on a mission to empower a lot of young women in Ghana. You are doing this by way of trying to encourage young girls to pick up STEM classes. And so many people are coming to you wanting to be the next change makers.
I started this project, which is now a foundation called STEM She Can, where we encourage young women and young girls not to fear science-based education or science-based careers, but to pursue it no matter what their career is, whether it's in business or art. There's a way you can incorporate science into it, technology into it. And so we bring them up to speed to it and try to debunk the myth that there is. So I am a petroleum engineer. I worked on oil fields where most of the time you rarely see a young girl offshore with among 100 plus, 200 plus men all around. And so we wanted to debunk the myths that there were. Sometimes when I come back on shore and I'm still in my suit, people look at me weirdly. And when I tell people my profession, they wonder, why would I do this? Or how did I even get there? And so I realized there was a gap a gap in knowledge and a gap in the hiring. So the part that I can do is to encourage more young girls to pursue it, and even those who are already in it to continue to help manage their success in the profession. So that's what I set out to do with a network of other engineers and pilots and other people in STEM to do this. We had one person from South Africa who was once a business student and is now a pilot, to see that possibility, or to say, I own a business, but I use tech to expand my business. It's that amazing that no matter who you are, you can still build a website or use tech, robots, GPT, which is now the ish, use it to expand whatever field you are in.
You say you only started last year, and by my count, you've already impacted so many young people. They want to be the next Elon Musk. They want to be you. How are you able to do it within a very short time?
I work with a network of people already. We have a network of women in engineers, women in aviation, women in mining, who also had the same passion, who wanted to do this. So it was just a matter of asking, would you come on board? Would you join? And some came on their own dime to do this. And the kids as well, you said you saw many people, maybe young girls, who were excited to be on board. That's because we kind of exposed them to something they didn't realize was possible for them. Because seeing us makes a difference for them to see.
You inspire them.
Who was once in their community to be in this position. It makes them think that, oh, me too, I can do it. And that is bringing reality to them. Most of the time when you see on the screens, you see on the adverts, you see in books and papers, they are all male figures. I don't think it was conscious, but there is this unconscious bias. And so when a young girl sees that, they often question, is it mine to pursue?
I'm curious to know, how has the response been like when you talk to these young girls who are eager to learn? What are they excited about? What's their response?
So first of all, whenever we enter into a community, they wonder, who are these people? And what I like to do is encourage our mentors to come in costume. So the miners come in their costume, engineers come in their costume, and they are wondering, what are these people coming to do with us? And when we start telling our story, they realize, oh, so this is who I can be. And we have a picture. We always send a banner with pictures of other women who look like them. That reality, giving them the exposure first, and then giving them an experience. As I said, we bring hands-on experience to them, to robotics, drone, ICT bits, for them to experience that, oh, it's not as difficult as I thought. And then telling our stories also to inspire them. That's what I think clicks in them and say, yes, I want to do this.
Where do you draw your motivation? Or what inspires you?
Oh, my mom, no doubt. My mom. So she's a woman also, whenever I see her in pictures, even though she's working in government sector, she's always in the midst of men. She's always the only person in the midst of them, whether she's working in the Ministry of Defense, Health, Education, wherever it is. Most of her pictures, she's like that. And I see her championing and moving forward and moving. And she's never saying that, oh, I'm a girl, that's why I'm doing this. No, she's pushing because she knows she can do it. And so that is my motivation to keep moving.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Paul. It was really a pleasure.
That was Africa 54 technology correspondent Paul Ndiho speaking with Eugenia Buwadi, founder of the Yes She Can initiative in Accra, Ghana. The Abidjan Basketball Club, the Ivorian champions, are preparing for the beginning of their first season in the Basketball African League in Senegal on March 11th. Ahead of the BAL, the ABC Fighters are hosting a warm-up tournament in Abidjan. Alaina Monchi has more, narrated by VOA's Jackson Bungani.
At the Tretchville Sports Palace in Abidjan, the Abidjan Basketball Club is getting ready for the 2023 season of the Basketball Africa League. And to prepare for the BAL, the ABC Fighters are sharpening their skills in a preparation tournament against the Stade Malien team from Mali and the Kwara Falcon of Nigeria, who are also first-time participants in the BAL. ABC head coach Liz Mills is confident.
So our mindset in the next couple of days as we build towards Senegal is really positive. We know we've put in the work to prepare, and we've done everything we can do in order to be ready for game one on the 11th of March. which is Saturday next week. And so for us, we know we've done all the on-court preparation, off-court preparation, such as scouting. I've got a great coaching staff who are looking after all the scouting as well. The players are doing everything possible on the court and off the court to be prepared. Preparation is our competitive advantage, so we're feeling very confident heading into our first game next week.
Ivory Coast is the 6th African country after Zambia, Cameroon, Rwanda, Kenya and Morocco, where Coach Mill, the Austrian technician, is displaying her ability. She remains hungry to win.
We're going into the BAL prepared to win it all. We're not going just to participate, we're going to compete. And our goal is, first and foremost, is to go and win our games in Senegal.
This preparation tournament comes just a few days before the start of the BAL. The ABC fighters are in the opening match against AS Douane of Senegal. It is an opportunity for ABC to improve all phases of their game.
We feel that the team is looking for itself. The automatisms are not yet well put together, even if the players have been here for 2 or 3 weeks for some. But we have the impression that the coach manages them well, manages to set up her game well. And we hope that in Dakar, they will succeed to be part of the 4 teams to go to Kigali.
Created in 1997, the Abidjan Basketball Club is no stranger to African competitions. For entrepreneur Kone Ali, the fighters will be ready for the BAL.
They have already played several international competitions, so I think that internationally they really have a place and they can. With what the staff is already doing, I think they can compete on all platforms.
The Basketball Africa League will be a challenge for the ABC fighters, but they are ready to compete and raise the standard of Ivorian basketball.
The emblem of Ivorian basketball at club level is Abidjan Basket Club, and with this preparation, we will then go and challenge what is best at level of African basketball and come back again for the future editions to defend Ivorian basketball.
The BAL season is 3 months, from March to May. 12 teams, including the ABC fighters, will compete in the 38 games. The teams will be divided into 2 pools, and the first 4 will qualify for the quarterfinals. For Ale Amonchi in Abidjan, I'm Jackson Bunganyi, VOA News.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.